woken by a knock at the door.
So right now, you are under arrest for the administration of poison.
This TikTok mum throws her hands on her face and collapses onto a chair as reality sets in.
You have the right to remain silent.
Handcuffed and led away, showing similar emotion to that filling her social media feeds as she documented her daughter's health struggles.
What the hell, my baby girl? She's so little. And she is riddled with tumours.
Now accused of drugging the one-year-old to make a profit.
There are no words to describe just how repulsive offences of this nature are. There is no excuse for hurting a child, particularly one so young that is totally dependent on adults to care for and love for them.
Police allege she gave the girl a mix of prescription and pharmacy medication not meant for her. The mum is accused of drugging the child between August and October last year, making TikTok and Instagram posts at that time featuring the sick little girl. Hospital workers then became suspicious and raised the alarm with police. In November, investigators made a public appeal as they quietly kept building their case. The positive test results came back on January 7. Today, they arrested the mum.
Experts have described that the child would have been going through severe emotional and physical distress and harm.
Police allege she pocketed $60,000 from donations to support the girl, angering others who followed the little one's plight.
I had seen how upset she was. She was quite distressed about what's going on with her child.
The charges include administering poison with intent to harm, preparation to commit crimes with dangerous things, torture, making child exploitation material, and fraud. At the home she was arrested at today.
Just wonder if we could talk to anyone about what's happened here this morning.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Police have now ruled out the involvement of anyone else, including the child's father, who appeared alongside the accused in some of the social media videos. He recently posted this.
I really do appreciate everybody's love and compassion and concern and empathy.
I think the worst thing that could happen would be if, as a society, we lose our generous Aussie nature where we dig in and help our mates out because of one bad incident.
As police confirmed, they've taken action to protect the child. The woman will face court tomorrow on those 11 serious charges. Now, when she does, police have already indicated they will strongly oppose any application for her release. Meantime, officers are also working with GoFundMe to secure refunds for anyone who donated thinking they were supporting the little girl's recovery.
Good evening. An explosive electrical storm has smashed Sydney, cutting power to hundreds of thousands of properties and leaving behind an almighty mess. Tonight, the clean-up stretches from Penrith in the west to Lugano in the south and Turramurra in the north.
From an ominous arrival,
look,
moving in from the west, nothing could prepare Sydney for the moment it hit. An orchestra of thunder. And a dazzling but dangerous light show. More than 73,000 lightning strikes recorded, hitting a little too close to home in the Illawarra. And at Busby near Liverpool.
What the f***?
Torrential rain hit hard. Cars navigating floodwaters at Moorebank as footpaths flooded at Darlinghurst. Our already strained public transport system was put to the test and dinner plans were interrupted at this Lugano restaurant.
We're just waiting for the hail to come.
And come it did, to the Blue Mountains. A garden sculpture thrown across a vineyard in the Hunter Valley. Sadly, some didn't make it to safety in time. An 80-year-old man in Cowra killed when a tree fell on his car.
Our deepest sympathy goes to his family and friends.
Elsewhere in the Central West, a lightning strike igniting a ferocious blaze at a home in Mudgee. Powerful gusts also blew out windows at Greenacre. Power cut to at least 250,000 buildings. Where the power surprisingly stayed on, others were unfazed. After a sleepless night for so many, daylight revealed just how much damage had been done. 14 residents homeless after the roof was ripped off their Carlingford apartment block. The power still out for thousands today, but for this Turramurra salon, it was business as usual.
Always got to try, always got to try.
Residents patching up roofs while waiting for the SES.
Then leaking. I just the whole night fixed the problem.
The State Emergency Service has been inundated with calls for help, receiving over 2,000 last night. Today is all about prioritising jobs to get to as many homes and businesses as they can.
Definitely over the past couple of years, one of the worst storms we've attended, yeah.
While the storm has passed, the summer sun isn't quite ready to return. A hazardous surf warning in effect with reduced water quality and even more rain forecast over the coming days. Erin Ramsey, 9 News.
Belinda's here with more on the wild weather. And Belle, which suburbs had the highest rainfall?
Evening, Georgie. It certainly packed a punch. Our biggest storm this summer, Holsworthy, received more than a month's worth of rain with 59 millimetres, 54 for Abbotsford and Bankstown and 48 for the city, our heaviest downpour in 7 months. Today, Wahroonga and Hornsby were our wettest suburbs, recording nearly 30 millimetres since 9 a.m. The showers finally clearing offshore at about 2:30 this afternoon. Tonight, minor flooding is occurring along the Cooks River at Tempe Bridge, and the warning will remain in place for tomorrow with more rain expected. The wild winds also hanging around, with the southerlies ramping up to 40 to 60 kilometres per hour along Sydney's coastal fringe tonight, and tomorrow we are in for more of the same. I'll be back with the forecast later in the bulletin, Georgie.
Belinda, thank you.
The Japanese government's earthquake investigation panel raised the probability of a Nankai Trough earthquake to 80% within the next 30 years. The panel of experts said that as of January 1st, the probability of a magnitude 8 to 9 class earthquake occurring within 30 years had risen to about 80% from the previous 70 to 80%. The probability of a megaquake occurring in the Japan Trench and the Tsushima Trench also rose. The chances of an 8.6 class megaquake occurring off the coast of Tokachi is now 20%. The panel said that the adjustment reflects the passage of time since the last big quake in the area and does not indicate a sudden increase in risk.
Police in Australia are searching for a suspected arsonist who got a taste of his own medicine. Surveillance video shows the man's pants catching fire as it appears that he tried to spread a flammable liquid in front of a restaurant. This happened early Christmas morning. The two suspects quickly took off after the man's clothes caught fire. Authorities say both suspects got into a van and drove away.
There's been anger during the LA fires at State Farm Insurance after it was revealed that last year it had dropped policies for a large number of California property owners. Now comes this. State Farm just canceled its planned Super Bowl commercial, a follow-up to last year's ad featuring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito that was voted most popular.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Cut! State Farm has just announced it's pulled its new Super Bowl commercial due to the devastating Los Angeles fires. Last year's commercial was a huge hit with viewers, featuring actors Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger, who plays an insurance agent saving pets from a family's home that's going up in flames.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Today, State Farm announced, our focus is firmly on providing support to the people of Los Angeles. We will not be advertising during the game as originally planned. The insurance giant faced criticism last year after it declined to renew 72,000 policies in California due to the wildfire risk. It now says it will offer policy renewals to thousands of people impacted by the fires. Today, there's a new threat in fire-ravaged Los Angeles. This hillside home survived the devastating Pacific Palisades fire, only to be split in half by a landslide. Incredibly, the house made it through the fire, but now has been completely destroyed by a landslide, possibly triggered by the house above it, which burned and then collapsed in the fire.
I'm sickened, because we had survived the fires and we were so holding on to the hope that we could move back in.
Today, authorities warned expect more landslides along devastated hillsides.
A warning to all the residents, no matter where you live in LA County, if you have slopes behind your homes, or if you're located on the top of a slope, these slopes have become fragile.
Frustration continues to grow among fire evacuees not allowed access to their homes.
I live right here, just want to go to my house.
Unfortunately, we can't let anybody through. It's a hard closure.
If I burn down, it's okay. I'm fine with that. Why is that a no?
Actor Mel Gibson was one of the few homeowners able to catch a ride in with firefighters to view his once sprawling Malibu estate.
Wow.
Today, nothing remains of the $18 million property.
This was a garage and a guest house apartment on top.
He toured the scorched grounds with News Nation senior national correspondent Brian Ensign.
Innocent young woman has been murdered by arsonists who firebombed the wrong house in Truganina.
The 27-year-old was house sitting for her brother, who was on his honeymoon when the home was set alight. Isabel Quinlan reports.
Behind these fierce flames, a young woman is trapped, frantically calling 000 for help to escape, but she didn't stand a chance. And investigators say this inferno was deliberately lit.
She's been subjected to the most appalling, despicable act one could imagine.
Firefighters raced to the Truganina home around 2 a.m. and desperately searched inside. But the intensity of this blaze was so extreme, they had to retreat. And in the light of day came the confirmation. The 27-year-old woman who was looking after her brother's home while he's on his honeymoon had been killed.
This poor girl did not deserve this. House sitting and her life's come to an abrupt, tragic end.
Investigators say moments before an explosion inside the property, 2 people got out of this SUV parked nearby, pouring an accelerant on the home.
This is no accident. They have deliberately, from what we've seen, jumped over a fence and targeted this premises.
And detectives are adamant the arsonist targeted the wrong house.
We have no history on this individual nor the family.
Police say with the dramatic increase in arson-related crimes over the past 18 months, it was only a matter of time before an innocent life was lost. While they believe this incident is a case of mistaken identity, patrols will be ramped up in the area.
There seems to be a fascination with the use of fire to solve crime, solve acts of revenge. They're not facing a criminal damage charge. They've been staring down the barrel of a homicide charge.
And Isabel Quinlan is in Truganina tonight. Izzy, police are still looking for the killers.
They are, Alicia. Detectives have spent a majority of the day looking for CCTV, trying to figure out these offenders' movements. And while reviewing some footage, they've actually noticed what appears to be one of the offenders getting burnt during the firebombing. So they say they'll likely have some sort of wound. So they're urging anyone who may have information to come forward. Alicia, police are still trying to figure out potential motives for this attack, but say it's not linked to the ongoing tobacco wars.
Cars have been firebombed and a home has been sprayed with graffiti in another anti-Semitic attack in Sydney's eastern suburbs. Police were called to Dover Heights at 4 a.m. today to find red paint was splattered across a home. At least one car has been graffitied with an anti-Semitic slur and 2 others were set alight. Politicians have condemned the attack. New South Wales Premier Chris Minns has described it as disgusting. He's going to be delivering a press conference later this morning and detectives are currently still on the scene. Well, joining me live is Waverley Mayor Will Namesh. Will, thanks for joining us. Another disgusting attack in your council area.
Yeah, I mean, these attacks are clearly escalating. They're absolutely vile. The community, is feeling obviously quite vulnerable. And not only, must we condemn these attacks, but all levels of government really need to show strong leadership in taking proactive measures to stamp this out.
This house that was covered in red paint, do we know who lived there, whether it was actually a Jewish resident that was targeted?
I understand it was actually a non-Jewish resident, but some of the cars that were damaged did belong to Jewish residents. The police inquiries are obviously just started and ongoing, but it's a bit early to sort of speculate.
And look, the reason why we're seeing so many incidents in Sydney's east is because of a high population of Jewish residents, isn't that right?
Absolutely, and Dover Heights actually has the largest concentration of Jewish population in New South Wales, and it's well known to be a large concentration of Jewish population. And Waverley is also one of the densest LGAs and does have large Jewish population, but so does Woollahra. And it's not just Waverley, this is occurring across New South Wales and across Sydney. And it really is disgusting and despicable, and rightly so it's being called out. But as I said, more needs to be done proactively to really stamp out this insidious form of racism.
And we are seeing increasing amounts of arson as well. 2 cars going up in flames this time, and those flames that we've seen on those pictures are quite severe. Brent, our reporter, was on the ground at the crime scene there, and he was talking to some residents, and they were saying, what happens next? Is someone going to be killed?
I mean, as you rightly pointed out, these incidents are escalating. It started off with graffiti. It's now moving to arson and attacks on people's private property. So you're right, like where is this going to end? I have to commend the police though, they were really quick to respond. They've really been stepping up their actions as part of Operation Shelter and Operation Pearl, and they're taking this incredibly seriously.
Do you think we need stronger laws?
Absolutely. We have to, at both a federal and a state level. At a local government level, we're doing what we can, but we don't pass laws. So I've spoken to my team at Waverley. They're going to be on site shortly to clean up, if they haven't already started to clean up the graffiti and the mess and devastation sort of left behind. But really, proactive action at a federal and state level is an absolute must.
Will Nimesh, appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Under heavy guard, Mozambique's new president, Daniel Chapo, took oath of office on Wednesday with promises to unite the country. But even as he was making the pledge, demonstrations against him turned deadly in the capital of Maputo and the city of Nampula, killing 7 people. 48-year-old Chapo's presidential inauguration extends his Frelimo party's 50-year rule in Mozambique after a bitterly contested election in October. Opposition candidate Venancio Mondlane won the vote. His supporters have held protests for months after defying violent police response. On the eve of the inauguration, Mondlane threatened to paralyze the new government with daily demonstrations. Chapo responded, saying a political dialogue is underway and Mondlane is included in it. 50-year-old Mondlane is popular with the youth. He says Frelimo party rigged the election that international observers say was marred by irregularities. The political unrest that followed the election has claimed over 300 lives. Authorities say that these deaths include even police officers. But despite the deserted streets and military planes circling Maputo and its suburbs, Chapo is finding diplomatic support. Neighbouring South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa attended his inauguration, as did Portugal's foreign minister. But for now, the shape of the unrest will depend on how Chapo tackles the trust deficit in his country. According to official results, Chapo won 65% of the presidential vote, compared to 24% for Mondlane. Mondlane, however, claims he won 53%. Frelimo parliamentarians also dominate the 250-seat National Assembly with 171 seats compared to the opposition Podemos party's 43. And for more, our correspondent Calden Ongmu has sent us a report from Johannesburg. Listen to it.
Mozambique's new president, Daniel Chapo, was sworn in at a low-key ceremony in the capital, Maputo, on Wednesday. Chapo will confront a country more dissatisfied with his party than at any point during the country's 50 years of independence. Thousands of people took to the street after the October elections, criticizing the result as rigged. More than 300 people have been killed in clashes with security forces since October. According to Election Observer Group platform at his side, 8 people were killed by police on Wednesday. Analysts say Frelimo's grip on power is being tested like never before at a time when Mozambique faces urgent economic and social crisis. Here in South Africa, President Ramaphosa, who attended the inauguration on Wednesday, was criticized heavily by political party leader Mmusi Maimane of BOSA, stating that Ramaphosa's attending the inauguration undermines democratic values of the SADC region. This is Kalden Omer from Johannesburg, South Africa.
Australia's unemployment rate has ticked up from 3.9% to 4%. That's despite more than 55,000 new jobs being created. And you're probably wondering, how does that stack up? Well, the measure of unemployment isn't based on how many people have lost a job, it's how many are searching for one, and the rate has risen because more Australians are looking for a job. That can be taken as a sign households are still struggling with the cost of living. So what does this all mean for interest rates? The Reserve Bank needs the jobs market to take a hit in order to cut rates. That's because more people working means more people are spending money, potentially putting pressure on inflation. Unemployment has risen, but the jobs market is still strong, and economists aren't convinced that it builds a case for the RBA to cut the cash rate. That decision will be made in February. And while mortgage holders are of course hoping for relief, that won't happen without more Australians being put out of a job. And some are questioning whether that's a world we want to live in.
In the world of space, an exciting news is coming from China. A new space communication technology is taking wireless connectivity to the next level. Scientists have successfully tested a space version of China's Neuralink wireless module, also called Aerospace Neuralink, which promises to revolutionize rocket communication. And this technology is designed to replace Bluetooth and offers faster communication with lower latency. Now, you might be wondering what latency is. Well, latency refers to the time delay between sending and receiving data. Traditional communication systems have delays measured in milliseconds, that is 1,000th of a second. But Aerospace Neuralink slashes that delay to microseconds, a much smaller unit of time, which makes communication almost instantaneous. The new technology is expected to reduce the weight of heavy rocket cables, saving both space and launch costs. The new system is also capable of handling extreme temperatures, which often results in data loss in traditional systems. This space version of the Neuralink is part of a bigger project by China's Xingshan Alliance, which includes major companies like Huawei. The technology is not only helping rockets, but it's already been used in products like smartphones, earphones and wireless accessories.
And as the swearing in of Donald Trump nears, the US faces increasing uncertainty around H-1B visa program that's crucial for foreign workers in specialty occupations. This program, introduced in 1990, it's seen growing discontent due to its complexity, administrative costs and lottery-based selection process. The employers are turning to alternative solutions like remote hiring, bypassing the need for H-1B applications. A report from Newsweek highlights that many are seeking remote staff to avoid these challenges, with some opting for visas with fewer hurdles. Additionally, H-1B visa holders are being advised to remain in the United States as rule changes could impact their ability to re-enter if they leave. Indians are the largest beneficiaries of the H-1B visa program, with over 72% of the H-1B visas issued in 2024 granted to Indian workers. However, the latest data shows a significant drop in H-1B approvals for Indian tech firms. The National Foundation for American Policy reports that top Indian tech companies suffered significant declines in new H-1B approvals in 2024. This decline is notable for companies like Amazon, which saw a decrease from previous years. Other major players such as Infosys, Cognizant and Tata Consultancy Services also faced a reduction in approvals. The Trump administration is expected to introduce a modernized version of this program, focusing on fairness, transparency and efficiency. While the changes may benefit U.S. employers, they could further complicate the process of foreign workers. Amid the uncertainty, the United States is also launching a pilot program for the renewals allowing workers to renew their visas without leaving the country. This move could streamline the process, especially for Indian workers who make up a significant portion of H-1B visa holders.
After videos of Border Patrol agents in Bakersfield circulated on social media and reports of agents seen in Fresno County, undocumented migrants in the valley are on edge. Xochitl Nunez tells us her community is in despair.
I've never seen people not go to work before. This is the first time that I've seen people going to those lengths.
Xochitl is a farm worker in Tulare County. She drove into Fresno to pick up red cards for herself and her coworkers that spell out their rights if officers question them. Frustrated, she says immigrants are being wrongly depicted as bad people. At a press conference this weekend, local leaders announced that 78 people were detained in both Fresno and Kern counties. But the ACLU says that number could be closer to 190. Most of them are Mexican nationals. The Border Patrol has claimed all detained have criminal histories, but local leaders say they've heard contradicting reports. Nandeep Singh, the executive director of the Jakara movement, which serves the Sikh and Punjabi community, says the fear is not isolated to Latinos.
Specifically here in Fresno, we have heard enforcement raids at truck stops, ethnic grocers.
Immigrant service providers say misinformation and legal scams are now running rampant. They're also seeing new trends like undocumented people too afraid to go in for help themselves and having difficult conversations about what would happen if they were detained.
Border Patrol activity here happening in Kern County. Residents from all over have gathered here at the corner of Ming and Weibel to protest Border Patrol's activities. I'm Sam Hoyle, your neighborhood reporter. We spoke with residents from all over to get their stories and see why they came out in support of their efforts.
It was a strong turnout Friday morning on the corner of Ming and Weibel Streets near Valley Plaza. For some, the purpose of standing and waving signs admonishing Border Patrol's operation dubbed Return to Sender was a personal one, such as Danette Ramos, who immigrated to the U.S. as a child.
I think standing together and showing support for, the people that can't come out here, because there are a lot of people that are scared. I went to the store the other day and I saw it was empty. So, that just kind of goes to show how people are frightened, and wanting to stay. So the people that can't come out here, and advocate for themselves, these people, we're here to kind of do that and support.
Carla Blue was also among the hundreds at the demonstration. She, too, immigrated to the U.S. and was standing in solidarity with those who may not have the ability to maintain a legal status in the U.S.
People don't stop and think. They're quick to say, hey, fix your papers, and they don't understand that it's not an easy process. It takes years. I came here when I was 6, and I did not get my citizenship until my junior year of high school. It took my parents that long. And at one point, was I never illegal, thankfully, because my parents did what they had to do to keep putting in paperwork, and that took thousands of dollars. And that wasn't easy. My parents had support, and they were lucky, but not everyone is that fortunate.
Evelyn Dominguez, another protester, noted the lack of information that was disseminated from official sources throughout the Border Patrol's operation brings uncertainty for whatever else may come once Donald Trump assumes the presidency.
It brings fear not only to know that there's people that I know that are being affected by this, but also like the younger youth, not knowing whether or not their parents are going to be able to come home after they come home from school. So it definitely brings fear, but it also influences me to want to continue to stay educated, to show up to places where people are teaching us how to maneuver through this. Again, so we're able to be a voice for the people that have no direction or feel like they have no direction.
So even as it appears that Border Patrol's operations have ceased here in Kern County for the time being, the Rapid Response Network, so they will continue to provide Know Your Rights workshops. In Bakersfield, I'm Sam Hoyle, your neighborhood reporter.
After months of protest and pushback, the Clinton Hill community is reacting to the news that a controversial migrant shelter is set to close in a matter of months. News 12's Rob Flax explains what's next for them and for those inside.
First word that comes to mind is relief. There was a level of instability that was introduced into the community.
Neighbors here in Clinton Hill today celebrating the announcement that the Hall Street migrant shelter behind me will be closing its doors this June. Those neighbors telling us they believe it's the best path forward, both for them, but also for the migrants inside that shelter.
Mass warehousing human beings, that's wrong. And so I'm happy that they're going to have a new home, make sure that they have enough restrooms for the migrants to use, and that is what is important.
Those inside heading to a new facility in the Bronx. Today, they're only finding out about the closure and move when we asked them what their plans were. They say they hope for better conditions.
The brothers, they don't have any place to sleep. We are all human, so let's work together in order to build the world.
Neighbors say the city must learn from its mistakes.
Yes, it is a victory for this particular neighborhood. You know, I've heard that they're going to the Bronx, but I don't want them to experience what we experienced down here.
Council member Crystal Hudson says her office is working to ensure a smooth transition, calling for an end to the 60-day limits that she says send people onto the streets.
4,000 neighbors of any kind from anywhere is always going to be a challenge for any neighborhood. But we're moving in the direction of permanent housing for folks. We're moving out of these extremely temporary, inhumane shelter situations for folks.
And for those nearby, an end date and a return to normal.
Looking forward to clearer sidewalks, hopefully a lot less trash.
Travel on the ground and not be met with the smell of urine is going to be great.
Donald Trump's comments about making Canada the 51st state have captured the attention of people across the country. Ipsos polling released Thursday found that 80% of people would never vote in favor of trading their Canadian identity in for an American one. Breaking it down by 3 age brackets, 18 to 34, 35 to 54, and anyone 55 or older, a clear majority is to keep the maple leaf flag. But those numbers start to shift with one group if our neighbors to the south sweeten the deal. When asked if Washington offered Canadians full U.S. citizenship, a full conversion of the Canadian dollar, as well as transferring personal assets into U.S. dollars, 7 in 10 still say they would not vote to don the Stars and Stripes. When looking at age demographics, only 17% of those 55 and older would make the change. But 1/3 of Canadians aged 35 to 54 would adopt an American nationality, and more than 4 in 10 between 18 and 34 would do the same.
Maybe the pressure from the United States, and particularly from Donald Trump, is going to hopefully cause us to reconsider some of that. But there are some people who are prepared to take it into more of an economic realm and say, in my personal economic self-interest, at least 1/3 of us, 30%, close to 1/3, would say, you know, maybe that's something worth considering.
While most Canadians say Trump's comments about making Canada the newest state have strengthened their Canadian pride, almost half say his words make them think Canada's future independence is in jeopardy, with 2/3 of young adults feeling that way. In response to the remarks on cross-border tariffs, the Prime Minister has announced a new 18-person council on Canada-U.S. relations. It includes 3 former premiers, Canada's chief CUSMA negotiator, and the current and former ambassadors to the U.S., as well as a host of business and national security advisors. The Trump administration is set to be sworn into office on Monday. Kyle Benning, Global News.
The jubilant scenes in Syria after the fall of the Assad regime were also a sign there's a challenging road ahead for the new interim administration, led by Ahmed al-Sharaa, to rebuild the country. A high-level Syrian team, led by the new Foreign Minister Assad Hassan Shaibani, paid the first visit to Turkey on Wednesday to talk about the issues to come. Their first stop was the presidential complex. The delegation met Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and discussed wide-ranging issues of mutual concern. Just before the meeting, Erdogan made public what Turkey expects from the new Syrian administration.
In Syria, the most pressing issue remains the PKK-YPG terrorist organization, which still controls nearly 1/3 of the country's territory and exploits its natural resources. If the terror group, which has also plundered Syria's natural riches, does not disband and lay down its weapons, it will face inevitable consequences. Turkey stands as a supporter of resolving the issues faced by all groups in Syria, particularly our Kurdish brothers and sisters, and remains a guarantor of their security.
The two sides agreed on the urgency to deal with terror groups in Syria.
There is no place for terror in the future of the region. We will never consent to the division of Syria. The region has suffered enough from wars. It's time to purify itself from terrorism, weapons and violence. It is time for peace, solidarity, brotherhood, development and prosperity. Turkey is capable of taking the necessary steps quickly with its means and capabilities on this issue.
We also stress that the new Syrian government will not allow Syrian territory to be used as a launchpad to threaten the Turkish soil and the Turkish people. We will work on removing these threats through many means.
Ankara's main concern is the existence of the PKK-YPG terror group east of the Euphrates River in Syria, which is supported and trained by the US on the grounds they're fighting another terror group, Daesh. The US support for the PKK-YPG is one of the many issues that has strained relations between Ankara and Washington. There are around 2,000 US troops in Syria, and incoming President Donald Trump has indicated he wants them out. Uncertainty over the direction of US policy is one of the challenges that lie ahead. This is a moment that carries significant risk. Ankara's priorities are restoring stability and addressing security threats. Claire Herriot, TRT World, Ankara.
U.S. National Security spokesperson John Kirby has said that Pakistan was never a U.S. ally, as there was no treaty or alliance between the two countries. The U.S. spokesperson said that U.S. partnered with Pakistan to deal with terrorist threats.
Pakistan was never a technical ally of the United States. I mean, there was no treaty of alliance with Pakistan, but certainly over many, many years, for the last couple of decades, we partnered with Pakistan as appropriate to deal with the terrorist threat that still exists on that spine between Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Kirby's remarks have come after legislation was reintroduced in the U.S. House of Representatives last week to terminate Pakistan's designation as a major non-NATO ally. Republican Congressman Andy Biggs introduced a bill that seeks to ensure Pakistan's military actions against the Haqqani network, designated as a terrorist organization by the U.S. The legislation says that the U.S. president should not issue a certification as a major non-NATO ally unless Pakistan continues to conduct military operations to significantly disrupt the safe haven and freedom of movement of the Haqqani network in the country. Congressman Andy Biggs, who is a chairman of the House Judiciary Panel's Subcommittee on Crime and Federal Government Surveillance, first introduced the bill in the U.S. House of Representatives in January of 2019. Since then, the legislation has been moved in every Congress but has failed to make any legislative progress in all its attempts.
NATO is increasing its presence in the Baltic Sea to safeguard critical infrastructure amid growing concerns about sabotage. The operation, called Baltic Sentry, comes after repeated damage to undersea cables and pipelines, incidents tied to rising security threats following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The mission includes frigates, patrol aircraft, and naval drones. NATO has warned it may board or impound ships suspected of endangering vital systems. One recent incident involved Finland, accusing a Russian tanker of damaging the Estlink 2 power line and telecom cables by dragging its anchor across the seabed. Finnish President Alexander Stubb linked the vessel to Russia's shadow fleet, though investigations are ongoing. In response to rising tensions, for the first time, a NATO member, Sweden, is deploying 3 warships and a surveillance aircraft to the operation. Its Coast Guard is contributing 4 monitoring ships, with 7 more on standby. Sweden joined NATO in March of 2024 and is stepping up to address growing regional threats. Swedish Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson reflected the region's tension, saying Sweden is neither at war nor fully at peace. The Baltic Sea's undersea cables and pipelines are vital, connecting Nordic, Baltic, and Central European countries for trade and energy. Since 2023, sabotage incidents have disrupted connections and impacted nations like Finland, Estonia, and Germany. NATO leaders, including German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, are targeting Russia's shadow fleet with sanctions and other measures to protect infrastructure. Latvia's president acknowledged the challenge of monitoring the Baltic's 2,000 daily ship crossings, but said NATO's actions send a strong deterrent message. NATO has reinforced its warning threats to critical infrastructure will bring consequences, including legal action against rogue ships. For more.
نفذ سلاح الجو المسير عملية عسكرية نوعية استهدفت أهدافا تابعة للعدو الإسرائيلي في منطقة يافا المحتلة، وذلك بعدد من الطائرات المسيرة. ونفذت القوة الصاروخية في القوات المسلحة اليمنية بعون الله تعالى عملية عسكرية استهدفت محطة الكهرباء التابعة للعدو الإسرائيلي في منطقة أم الرشراش جنوبية فلسطين المحتلة، وذلك بصاروخ مجنح. وقد حققت العمليتان أهدافهما بنجاح بفضل الله.